friend of mine started dating this guy. He's 26 and he still lives at his mom's house. That's gross. She's like, he's 26, so it's okay. First of all, he lives with his mom because he doesn't want to grow up. He just doesn't. I moved to fucking America from Croatia on my own when I was 22. You can't tell me anything else.
Mildred! Hey, Mildred! Mildred, wait up!
Oh, you are living in a glass house on this one, Mildred. You should be a little bit more careful on who you deem as an adult and who's a child. Sure, a man who lives with his parents at the age of 26 isn't exactly the most ideal of situations, but there are a litany of reasons as to why this is the case, and them being a deadbeat freeloader is only one excuse. I'd argue that a majority of men out there who do live with their parents don't do it because they want to. Thanks to a whole bunch of wonderful societal events, including massive increases in the cost of living, rampant inflation, stagnant wages, and massive layoffs in several sectors, brought to in part by folks like you who vote with their uteruses, the domicile culture has been forced to change. Now, Mildred, like I said, you're living in a glass house on this one. After all, you're rude, judgmental, entitled, not to mention you think you're mature just because you're middle-aged, and those are all qualities found in little girls, which would make you a woman child. So I think it's high time you went back and sat down at the kiddie table and away from the adults who are doing the best they can with what they got. Society would thank you, Mildred, but you really haven't done anything worth thanking. See ya later!
Checkmate. Checkmate. Checkmate.
Bang.
I've put together a list of bare minimum requirements in a romantic relationship. Keep in mind as I'm going through what your definition is of bare minimum behavior. As I go through this checklist, keep in mind how many yeses you have and nos you have by the end of it. Well, first is, do they respect you? Do they value you? Do they prioritize you? Do they take time to try and understand your needs and feelings? Do you feel safe around them? Do you feel supported? Do your feelings get validated? In a crisis, would you be able to depend on them to be there for you? Are they capable of deep empathy and healthy communication?
Nobody cares what you think.
Woman, you need to be serious for a second. The bare minimum argument is about as useless as your TikTok channel. As we all know, there aren't many forces in the known universe that are as destructive as a modern woman's feelings. If she doesn't respect this man at any point in the relationship, then regardless of what that man does, he will always be in the wrong. That man could be loyal, dedicated, and hardworking to make things work, but she will always find a way to twist his actions around so she can feel like he's not doing enough to make things work, while she sits around, does nothing, and stews in her own resentment towards this man, which is why the bare minimum is always based on feelings and never on facts. This way, it allows the woman to feel like a victim no matter the circumstances and gives her the false justification she needs in order to end things so she can give herself the false hope that there are better men out there. So if you're at the point where you're talking about the bare minimum, then there's no hope for you, sister. You've already told us that you don't even meet the bare minimum requirements for being human.
That's funny because it's so true.
4 behaviors that mean that a guy is not going to take you seriously. 1, communication exclusively on social media, Instagram DMs, Snapchat, but they don't pick up the phone and they don't text you. 2, they don't respond for a long time and then they send a bunch of messages at once just to keep themselves in the game with you.
Really?
And on today's thrilling episode of Women's Double Standards, we're seeing a human failure coach more or less admit that if a man uses the same tactics that modern women use when it comes to dating, then it's a red flag for the women. Modern women constantly brag about how they leave men on red for days at a time because to them, it's some kind of a flex and gives them magical powers to summon unicorns whose spit can make Chad give up his playboy lifestyle and settle for an average woman with virtually nothing to offer. It's interesting how modern women will have an arbitrary timeline when it comes to communication. They're allowed 3 days or even more depending on the placement of Jupiter in the night sky. However, if a man replies too late or too early to a text, contingent on the fact that he's not Ray McQueen, stuntman and venture capitalist, then it's an automatic red flag. Modern women rig the game so average men can't win. But the irony is when they do this, they are the only one who lose.
3, they don't give more than 1 night a week dedicated to seeing you. And even that is a stretch. Maybe you see them once every 2 weeks, but it's not continuing to be more frequent. Number 4, if it feels icky to you, if it feels like they might be using you or they're not treating you well, always follow your gut, because your gut always knows best.
Are you sure?
Lady, it's kind of arbitrary to be setting these standards for a man like Chad. He really doesn't care about your feelings, and he's not going to take you seriously, and that's because there's nothing to take seriously. This is the kind of man who has options, and I guarantee you, you're not the only woman he's seeing. There aren't that many of him, and too many of you. So not only does he have options, he has himself a roster. You remember those, right? You had the same thing back when you had value on the dating market. And you'll never feel like things are off because in your eyes, you think that if you keep providing him with low-effort bedroom fun, he'll eventually turn around and see you for the unique little flower that you are and settle for you while ignoring all of the better options that he has. Trust me, sister, he never will. Why should he? He has a harem of women like you at his fingertips, so even if you call him out for not taking you seriously, he'll just move on to the next woman, and you'll go on to TikTok to complain. Then schmucks like me will find your cringe and make fun of you, and the cycle will forever repeat itself. It's almost poetic when you think about it. Almost.
Yes, I'm certain that I read that somewhere once.
I have quite a few American people on here, and think like Newcastle or just anywhere but basically London. Is it just London, or is like the nightlife actually just got dead, or am I getting old? All jokes aside, I know that I don't really go clubbing anymore, right? But people that I know who are like 18, 19, 20, whatever, are not going out. And like, I'm asking them why they're not going out, and they're saying that like it's shit. And then when I have been to clubs, like recently here and there, dead. And I just wanted to know if this is a worldwide thing, or if it is just literally London. Like, why? I had the best times of my life. I used to go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even sometimes on a Sunday. And I feel so sorry for the younger generation. I think it's boring to go out and they just indoors every weekend.
Old.
Old?
Old.
Okay, I am not the universe's foremost expert when it comes to the club scene. I'm not even a galactic expert, and that's because clubs don't interest me, and I can't vouch for anybody, but in my experience, clubs kinda suck. They're loud, they're crowded, and the drinks are overpriced. And from my own personal experience, I felt like I needed one of those hazmat suits whenever I needed to go take a leak. But clubs have always been a never-ending fountain of hilarity for me thanks to aged-out, crusty old broads like this who go to clubs in a pathetic attempt to recapture their youth, only to find that the young people have better things to do than grind up on each other while paying $12 for a lukewarm beer. And they do have better things to do, like complain about their jobs on TikTok as they go to bed early thanks to a 12-hour shift they have the next morning in order to make enough money to afford a box of instant oatmeal. Because if there's one thing I've learned in this life, if you have a job that you hate, it's easier to work that job you hate without a massive hangover. But broads like this are so out of touch that they have no idea what's going on in the real world. So they'll just go ahead and judge the younger generation for not having any fun when they are incapable of having fun themselves.
You're boring! You're fucking dull! You have nothing to say! You are a one-hived mind twat waffle!
The thing that kills me that I don't think men will ever understand, the majority of men, not all men, okay? That's racist! But the majority of men will never understand is how complex women are. Specifically how complex and fascinating beautiful women are. All women, but specifically beautiful women that are sold short and kind of just seen for like in a shallow way for their exterior. These are the most complex human beings. Again, women in general, but the ones that are most underestimated are the beautiful women. It's like you think that that's all there is to them. I know corn stars that write better poetry than fucking Hemingway. Like, they are so fascinating in positive and negative ways. They're human beings, right? But the amount of poetry and sonnets and art that lie in these women that the majority of the world doesn't see, because they just see them for their exterior.
Hey, lady, seriously, I beg of you, in the name of the intergalactic space god Kloblularm, all hail, I really don't think it's fair for you to compare the poetry of a woman who makes her living by filming herself getting run through by countless men to a man like Ernest Hemingway. That man actually lived life. He traveled the world, fought in literal battles and was able to convey life experiences into works that are still influencing people to this day. And considering that you started off your ill-advised little rant by childishly mocking the men who don't appreciate being accused of criminal activity, I highly doubt in your ability to critique the quality of poetry, let alone one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. And even if what you say holds even the most microscopic amount of weight, which rest assured it most certainly doesn't, it doesn't matter. Nobody takes women like that seriously, and trust me, sister, it's not because you consider them beautiful. Once you cross that threshold into the corn industry, there is no going back. The reputation is forever sullied, and nobody will care about your uncanny ability to rhyme words.
It baffles my mind. It fascinates me to no end, I'm telling you. I feel like we're beginning to see it more now with social media, but even so, like, the world doesn't give women permission to be as complex and fascinating and as interesting as they are. And there's so much that the world doesn't get to see. And you only get to see it when you actually have relationships with these women and you care to find it.
What?
Well, that's where you're just wrong, lady. The mainstream media, entertainment industry, corporate America, the government, private education institutions, public education camps, streaming services, and not to mention the ubiquitous content on TikTok and YouTube do nothing but promote women as if they're some kind of superior being, while men are just oafish morons who like fart jokes when they're not coordinating with the world with brilliant strategies to oppress women. You are promoted to an obscene degree, and it's extremely rare for single, middle-aged, childless, modern women to display her talents unless it involves putting on makeup and assuming they're experts on men because they went on over 100 failed dates. You've been given every single opportunity to prove yourself, and you failed miserably almost every single time. And the more aesthetically attractive you are, the less you have to say because you're under the impression that your looks are a replacement for a personality and anything that could remotely resemble a contribution to society. And if we're being honest, the looks don't even matter anymore. It's just a basic symptom of modern women these days.
I need to write an essay on this, but even the complexities of like beauty, right? I am always going to prioritize being as beautiful as I possibly can because I see beauty as a weapon and as a armor in this world. I know that it protects me and it allows me to be able to move about the world in a way that I would not be able to if I were not. But at the same time, it comes with so much, it's so much of a hindrance in the world as well. It's the most fascinating double-edged sword. My toast is ready.
You don't know what words mean, do you?
No, what you've described is not a double-edged sword. It's not even a single-edged sword. It's a rusty, chipped-up, dull kitchen knife that'll fall apart if it gets hit by a slight breeze. Sure, at one point it may have been useful, but you neglected the thing by not using it properly. And that's why the essay you'll never get around to writing will be about a half a paragraph in length with half of your thesis statement consisting of the word "like" at least a dozen times. What makes modern women fascinating isn't their beauty. It's the fact that they think their youthful looks substitute for a personality. You see this with women on TikTok all the time. You can tell by the glint of lifelessness in their eyes. And as they get older and continue to try to think that they still have their looks, you see that lifelessness slowly take over their faces until they become virtually expressionless zombies who spit out some of the dumbest things imaginable while caking on makeup and acting like they're life experts as they frantically try to figure out how to behave like a human. But it's too late for you, sister. You might be able to make toast without filling your apartment with smoke, but that is no substitute for a personality. And that's gonna do it for today's video, gentlemen and gents. And as always, if you find that my particular brand of comedy is bringing you to the brink of laughter, then why don't you scroll on down and click that like and subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and leave a couple of comments, and make sure to share this video so we can give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for checking out the new video, gentlemen and gents. You all are beautiful, and until next time, peace out, homies.